It's August 16th, 2022. I'm watching the CBS this morning. They have a story on there, something about Liz Cheney. Now, um, for me, I'm it's really difficult to speak on because it's like there's the Democratic Party, there's the Republican Party, and for me, they're equal in fault throughout my life frame and before I arrived at this moment, this particular juncture. I don't know which compartment at sci-fi is more responsible, but when I look at her dimensions, it reminds me of the Jason Bourne calendar problem. She looks like she's the mother of this person, who then caused me an RH issue. And I'm a cosmic egg. There's a larger schematic on a global scale at House of the Sun and at my appearance and who I was to marry. But it seems that between the DJ, FM, AM radio, like Motown's involved in it. I heard it this morning. There's all sorts of levels. Travel and Leisure's in on it. And so then I'm watching the story about Next Gen. There's a child who's wearing a brown brimmed hat with two big sunflowers on it, and it's a drug called Methotrexate. I'm looking at the box for clues, and it says cytotoxin, cytotoxin agent. And then I'm looking at what the clues are that they gave me, and it says rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, rheumatic is something in like the hematological scale, like under that umbrella. And then I'm looking at arthritic and I'm thinking, is that erythrocyte? So it's on the red blood cell scale, not on the leukocyte scale. And then I'm looking at how the words work together in theoretical mathematics between the Roman and the Arabic set of characters that they cast into this language system. And I'm breaking it down even further. And if I go, they make the patient in the ghetto doctor section. I don't know about the medical officer section, but in the ghetto section where I have access to in trying to figure out my own health, they say things like rheumatoid arthritis. And when you ask what that is, they make it sound almost like it's bone related, osteocytes. And I know erythrocytes from my studies are born inside of the osteo shell or outer covering. But it's really tricky how they are bringing this beta into the alpha system and how the public is interpreting it, or how it's being misled into a false interpretation of sorts. And I'm really keenly like leaning in when they speak for their words. Because at some point you have to hold them to their word. And if their words are misleading, that's a problem. So I'm leaning into their words. I'm watching the story about this girl who just wants her medication because it's very painful. It almost reminds me of a white version of sickle cell. And then I'm thinking to myself, what kind of sick bastard would want to promote this? And then, of course, my mind goes to the edges of humanity and just how foul they can be. And then I scale back and I'm like, all right, let's stick with helping the little girl out and myself, and how is it relatable in this area of the United States of America, being North America before it was, and knowing that I have ancestry here in bloodline to the past presidents, the current presidents that have been, and to kings in bloodlines elsewhere, or emperors, Caesars. I mean, there's Kaisers. There's a whole lot of providential words that they've used throughout the priesthood. Um, so I'm thinking of these things, and then the first two letters of rheumatoid is RH. And again, being that I'm in the NEG RH category for this process, and most of the people outside the door are POS, and I can't tell the difference. I mean, in certain aspects, I can tell the difference clearly between an RH, NEG, and a POS. But for the most part, when they're like on the borderline, I can't tell the difference. Um, so that a protein matchup is whatever it is for what is a potential danger or not. Um, so I'm watching this story, and then they go back to this Liz Cheney thing, and I'm like, they want Trump is supporting someone else now, and I'm like, mm-mm. I'm like, I get that there's one person that looks like Sue up there, but I have no idea what her career is. I have no idea what information she was being fed. I have no idea what the backstory is. I don't even get family newsletters from the people who are in this political circus and public light that supposedly work at some level for what I'm not even clear anymore. Um, and then I was thinking about the story that they put on about the umbrellas on the beach. A lot of people have been putting their umbrellas on the beach, and there's some kind of crosswind that comes at the top of the umbrella, causes a vortex, and pulls the umbrella up. They call it lift, according to the public, whatever, education system. And so it lifts, and then it becomes a projectile, and it's been hurting some children that are just playing on the beach that didn't even know. So I'm thinking along those lines as well, because I know there's a crazy donkey, and there's some kind of crazy bull elephant, and then there's the rhino. And I'm still looking for rhino, and I don't know what humans made that to mean. I just know it's RH. Um, and then there's a 1, and then there's the NO, which is the whatever in enumerations and settlement and the establishment. So whatever on that. Um, so this is the reference that they gave this morning about this little girl who's suffering from this thing called, I mean, it's cytotoxins, and it's an agent. It seems to me septicemia seems to be a problem. Again, I have elevated platelet count, intermittent weakness in the muscles, unexplained. And then I was looking, Lewis was telling me about the biofilter. He had something going on in the pH balance, pH, not RH, pH balance of this bog to pond ratio that he's got going on with his aquatic plants and the fish, and trying to keep that habitat clean. And then one day he went out there because he thought he had a leak, and it looked like suds and foam at the top, and I'm like, now how that is so relatable to like what I call adipose runoff, like in what energy, like how did it create energy to store it in some alien tissue that's not smooth muscle, it's not necessarily striated muscle, it's some other foreign body tissue that causes the epidermis to look like lumpy mashed potatoes when it grows underneath, but on top of the striated muscle. And how is it? I mean, it's almost like a lattice system, it feels like, that grows its own vascular capillaries and whatever, venules, And then it almost like chokes off the ability of the muscle to perform correctly. Is that part of the problem with Parkinson's and with MS or Lou Gehrig's impossibilities? Is that the beginning stages of how it works? I don't want it to be so. But again, I also don't want to wind up in a wheelchair, so I'm trying to work between the ANS and the CNS of nervous systems and neurological systems within my own unit and mechanical function, dysfunction, and asymmetry at the moment, trying to just push past and through whatever's going on. Again, I don't know if I have encephalitis. There's no way for me to quantify that without going for major tests. And at this point, I don't think any of the doctors are really qualified in the New York area that I've met anyway, because they keep teaming up with the proteins or the people that carry the proteins that I don't want studying me. And they've essentially eliminated my choice from being able to maintain healthiness and be part of a medical group that refuses to let others study my bloodline. Talk about personal freedoms being stolen from you. And it just seems to be unannounced.
The fight over limits on abortion is spreading to some unexpected places, including drugstores. At least one medication commonly prescribed for arthritis, lupus, and even cancer is becoming harder to get after the Supreme Court allows states to restrict or outlaw abortions. Janet Shamlian has a story of patients who are caught in the middle and dreading the possible impact on their health.
Nora Wise has been living with a rare autoimmune disease that causes inflammation in her bones. For a while, her mom says.
You hear that? Inflammation in her bones. Bones are referred to as osteocytes, osteoclasts, osteoblasts, osteocytes. It's something osteo, O-S-T-E-O. Yet they're speaking of rheumato and aristo. It also leads me to believe, I don't know if the crazy donkey and the crazy bull elephant, in their attempt to build the empire taller, wider, faster, and without care for anything else, if they specifically captured an aristocrat, or at least in bloodline. I mean, for my point of view, they caught the wrong one because I happen to be a cosmic egg and I have the aristocratic blood. So that's twofold and two strikes against them in holding their responsibility together with some form of leadership coming into my birth set. Because technically, when I look at the November birth date and the June birth date, neither of them themselves or in their bloodline, children-wise, can even describe time without using the Trinity, which at this point, it's myself and Alexander. We're two of the Trinity. And then perhaps Tom Brady could be considered for the third point in the Trinity. Could be. Didn't say I was announcing it. But that's how you would be able to describe definitively time within our life frame. I have the cast forward. I have the final say on that. What I'm missing is the Trinity in male my age or within my time frame. But yet and the humans use this phrase, time is money. Great. I'm the embodiment of time. I'm part of the Trinity. And I have not received any money from any humans in anything that even resembles them taking care of my needs and allowing me to live however I need to live. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. So now, in actuality, not in theoretical world, but in actuality, you have stolen time from the deities, from the gods. The Holy Trinity knows about it. How are we going to rectify this? Because that is like the most important question at all times.
There was no relief.
We're doing therapies and everything we could, but her pain kept increasing. And she would be crying all night long.
The 10-year-old Indiana girl says the worst pain was in her lungs.
It felt like I didn't want to breathe. It just felt like needles.
Now, in my life frame, about when I was her age, I suffered from a version of this, although they did not put label on it. And right before Eric arrived at the World Gym, whatever year that was, I was trying to get a hold of the my body mechanics after having the first 3 children, after having Alexander. I was trying to get my body back in shape, and I was trying to get a hold of body mechanics. And when I started that attempt at running, after not having run for years, because I was consecutively in some childbirth state, the breathing, I was so short of breath. It was like there was not enough oxygen in the outside environment for me to feed the need of my body in order to make a running motion. I'm fortunate at this point with those 3 injectifers of ferrous that when I attempted the run yesterday, breathing was not an issue. It came easily. I was not winded. I was not out of breath. I was able to maintain an oxygen, like I wasn't gasping for air. But back in like 2007, 8, and 9, at some point, I was really huffing, like to try to pull air in. And the oxygenation rate was not where it needed to be for healthy body mechanics by any stretch. But again, that goes back to whatever's going on environmentally between here, Nassau, and Suffolk County, here being Queens.
But life changed, her mom says, after Nora's doctor prescribed Methotrexate.
We started the Methotrexate. It took about 2 weeks, and she said she wasn't in pain anymore.
Methotrexate slows the body's immune system and reduces inflammation. It's commonly used to treat rheumatoid arthritis and some...
So here, RH. And then it has an EUM. And then this is arthritis. I mean, again, there's like, it's the first couple of letters of aristocrat with the RH. Again, I know that there's a whatever in whatever. And this says Mercury Pharma.
Cancers, but can also be used to terminate non-viable ectopic pregnancies, where a fertilized egg grows outside the womb. Since the Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, some women report trouble getting the medication by pharmacists concerned they could be held responsible.
Now, I'm going to refocus this conversation because it said ecto, E-C-T-O. The only time I've ever heard ecto in the human world that I was held captive in, or I'm still captive in, is this ectoplasm that Ghostbusters used in some movie reference, which I have no idea in the medical realm what they use the word for. But here it says cytotoxic agent. Now, cyto, again, in the cellular it is cyto. I mean, I took a biology class that was outside of the nursing medical field. It was like a sold out class. They mentioned something about it, and we actually had to go up to the front of the room, and we actually had to sign in, and the professor actually held on to the sign-in sheet. Not sure what that was about because I just signed up to learn biology, even though I passed AP biology in high school. But I was curious what Nassau County Community College was teaching for biology. Um, but again, these words, the CYTO, it's a four-letter, whatever, just like ecto, ECTO. I know that these things are incredibly important in some kind of medical officer echelon of knowing things in some intelligent community that I, at this point, don't know where to find or what they organize themselves or call themselves. But as I go through this, I am reading it, and it says methotrexate, and if I take out this part of the word, one more letter, and it makes method. If I add a D to that, metho. Um, so again, like the box tells a story. I don't have access to this medicine. I didn't even know it existed until the story came on. But this comes on the heels of some abortion law fallout. What happens is, I mean, there's multiple POS in this field, but the NEG at American level is North American level that looks like the bloodline of all, like the past um, bloodline of the presidents are responsible for something, and the ancestors. And so there's some fight going on. I'm not quite sure at what level, but it is really toxic and hard to figure out where I need to be and who I need to speak to and how to help myself out of the situation of being in complete isolation and not having access to any money or funds or ability to care for myself. I'm still at 43. Now I'm back trying to nurse myself back into shape. And I'm relying on Lewis and Linda because they at least had opportunity in their lifetime to have some form of, as meager as it is, at least they had something. But now I'm relying on them in order to try to gain my whatever back, my health back. So that's what's going on today on the See the BS this morning. There's other stories that are important. I would have to fast forward them. I'm having a really hard time recollecting and pulling in memories. Don't know why. Again, I'm not sure if it's just, I'm not sure at what level it's interfered with as far as like endocrine and endoctrine. There seems to be a correlation and a relation that's very serious. And at the moment, like a trolley on an electric track that needs to keep constant contact, I'm having problems in the physical world. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies, broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.